Colonialism emerged during the Age of Exploration as European powers sought new trade routes, resources, and territories. Motivations behind colonialism were multifaceted, including economic interest, religious zeal, and imperial ambitions. European nations such as Portugal, Spain, and later England, France, and the Netherlands competed for global dominance. These nations launched expeditions driven by the desire for wealth, glory, and spreading their influence. They navigated uncharted waters, braved perilous journeys into the search of new territories and opportunities. Motivated by economic interest, religious zeal, and imperial ambition, European nations embarked on voyages of discovery, igniting a wave of colonial expansion that would reshape the world. Now, partners in history, let's dive into the expansion of colonial empires. European powers established colonies across Africa, Asia, the Americas, and the Pacific. They employed various strategies to maintain control, including military might, alliances with local collaborators, and the imposition of governance structures. These colonies became a vital source of wealth, providing raw materials, labor, and new markets for European industries. Trading posts and forts were established along the coasts, allowing for the establishment of colonial administrations that controlled vast territories. European powers engaged in aggressive expansion, often in competition with one another, which resulted in the division and subjugation of indigenous societies. Their relentless pursuit of wealth and dominance led to a fierce competition, as nations vied for supremacy, resulting in establishing vast colonial empires spanning across the globe. Colonialism was driven by economic motivations, as European powers exploited the natural resources, labor, and markets of the colonies for their own gain. Rich deposits of materials such as gold and diamonds were extracted, often leading to the environmental degradation and displacement of indigenous populations. Plantations were also established, cultivating cash crops such as sugar, tobacco, and rubber, utilizing forced labor and leading to the exploitation of local population. Slave trade became the central component of the colonial economy, with millions of Africans forcibly being transported to the Americas and other regions. This economic exploitation laid the foundation for vast inequities and disparities that persist in many regions in the world today. The ruthless extraction of minerals, establishment of plantations, and the horrendous slave trade formed a foundation of an exploitive economic system that perpetrated inequities and imbalances. Colonialism brought significant culture and social transformations. European languages, religions, and cultural norms were imposed upon indigenous populations, leading to cultural degradation and erasure. Indigenous traditions, languages, and belief systems were often denigrated and suppressed. However, resistance to the colonial rule emerged, with indigenous communities fighting to preserve their traditions, languages, and identities. Cultural syncretism occurred, with elements of European and indigenous cultures blending, leading to new forms of artistic expression, music, and literature. The exchange of ideas and the fusion of cultural practices resulted in the emergence of vibrant and diverse societies. Despite attempts to erase indigenous cultures, resistance movements emerged, resulting in the blending of cultures, the birth of new artistic expression, and the preservation of indigenous identities. Colonial powers established hierarchical structures of governance, placing Europeans at the top and subordinating indigenous populations. This power dynamic perpetrated social hierarchies and political disenfranchisement and economic exploitation. European administrators and officials held high significant authorities, often implementing policies that favored the colonizers and disregarded the needs and the rights of the indigenous communities. Indigenous leaders were often marginalized, and their traditional governance systems were undermined. This consolidation of power allowed colonial powers to maintain control and extract resources from the colonies. This power dynamic entrenched social hierarchies, political disenfranchisement, and economic exploitation, cementing the control of colonial powers over the colonies. Colonialism sparked resistance and independence movements worldwide as the indigenous populations fought for their rights and freedom. Visionary leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi in India, Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya, and Nelson Mandela in South Africa emerged to challenge the colonial rule. These movements took various forms, from nonviolent resistance to armed uprisings that ultimately led to the liberation of many nations. The resistance was fueled by the desire for self-determination, cultural preservation, and political autonomy. These movements galvanized support from within the colonies and garnered international attention, shining a light on the injustices of colonial rule. From peaceful protests to armed uprisings, these movements challenged colonial rule, inspiring hope and paving the way for the liberation of many nations. The process of decolonization often involved the partitioning of territories, leading to arbitrary border democracies. The India-Pakistan partition in 1947, for example, resulted in violent conflicts and mass migrations. Similarly, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict continues to be shaping by the partitioning of the region, causing ongoing geopolitical tensions, borders drawn by colonial powers often disregarded by ethnic, linguistic, and cultural realities, leading to long-standing disputes and conflicts. The legacy of these partitions and subsequent geopolitical challenges continue to shape the world today. The legacies of these partitions have given rise to ongoing conflicts and territorial disputes, highlighting the complexities and challenges of post-colonial nation building. The economic and political legacies of colonialism persist globally. Extractive economic resources, unique trade relations, and dependencies hinder on the development and progression of formerly colonized nations. Economic structures established during colonial times, such as cash crop economies and resource extraction industries, continue to shape the economic landscape of many countries. Political instability, corruption, and post-colonial power struggles are remnants of the colonial rule that shaped the realities of many nations. This long-lasting impact of colonialism underscores the need for addressing historical injustices and working towards equitable and sustainable development. For economic disparities and political instability, the impact of colonialism continues to be felt, underscoring the need for transformative efforts to address historical injustices. Amidst challenges, colonialism has also led to cultural exchange and hybridity. The blending of European and indigenous cultures, languages, and cuisines have resulted in vibrant, diverse societies. The cultural fusion gave birth to new art forms, literature, and music, as well as cuisines that showcase the resilience and creativity of formerly colonized people. Elements of indigenous cultures influenced and transformed European culture, leading to the emergence of new artistic movements and perspectives. This cultural exchange continues to enrich societies today, fostering a cross-cultural understanding and appreciation. This rich cultural fusion celebrates the resilience and creativity of formerly colonized people, fostering cross-cultural understanding and appreciation. The impact of colonialism and indigenous communities has been profound. Loss of land, displacement, forced assimilation, and erosion of cultural practices have all taken a toll on the indigenous populations. However, the indigenous people, they have faced violence, forced labor, and destruction of their traditional ways of life. This intergenerational trauma resulting from colonialism continues to affect the indigenous communities today. However, these communities have now shown remarkable resilience and are striving to reclaim their heritage, revitalize their cultural practices, and fight for their rights. Indigenous movements for self-determination, land rights, and cultural preservation are gaining momentum and highlighting the importance of indigenous voices in shaping the post-colonial world. However, indigenous communities have displayed remarkable resilience, reclaiming their heritage, revitalizing cultural practices, and demanding their rights and recognition. Colonialism's impact extends beyond individual nations and regions. It has shaped the interconnectedness of our world and influencing global trade patterns, migration flows, and cultural exchange. Colonial powers established trade routes, fostering economic independence between colonies and colonizers. The extraction of resources from colonies fueled industrialization in Europe, continuing the growth of this global capitalism. Migration, both forced and voluntary, have resulted in the movement of people across continents, leading to the exchange of ideas, cultures, and technologies. Understanding these historical connections fosters empathy and appreciation for diverse cultures and collective efforts to address consequences of colonialism. As we conclude our in-depth exploration of the impact of colonialism, let us recognize the power that we have as partners in history to shape a more just and equitable world by learning from the past, embracing diverse narratives, and working towards reconciliation. We can build a future where all voices are heard and respected. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe and join us next time as we continue our journey through history on Partner in History.